As we told you at the top of the hour, our state's unemployment rate slipping a bit to 15%. That's down from 15.2% the month before. It is the first decline in more than a year. Despite that glimmer of hope, and it is just a glimmer, tens of thousands are still struggling to survive without work. 24-Hour News 8 continuing our commitment to connect you to the resources you need to get back on your feet. With that, I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Brian Sterling. Brian?
Well, first off, Susie, we want to let you know that we're getting job search tips live from one of the many people who will be presenting at tomorrow's seminar, Mike Ball of K4 Staffing. Our first focus tonight. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. We're talking about good fits in the job search, and you have several tips on making that good fit. Give us a couple.
Well, one of the things people need to realize, Brian, is during slow economic times, companies place a lot more scrutiny on any hiring decision. It typically goes to a higher level of management within the hiring company, and because of that, you need to focus on jobs that are a good fit for your background. If you want to transition into a new area, you may have more luck with a job that's more in line with what you've done in the past, because those are the job seekers you'll be competing with.
If you don't have the training, maybe don't aim for that goal that might be out of reach. Go with within your own skill set. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. It's competitive out there right now, and companies are looking for people that meet all of the criteria they have for open positions.
Lots of searchers get down when they send resume after resume out and they don't get anything back. They get no feedback from that, and you say, hey, that's part of the game.
Yeah, the unfortunate truth right now is that HR departments have been cut just like every other department, and companies simply don't have the manpower or the resources to respond for everyone that applies. So psychologically that can be very challenging for job seekers. If they sent out 50 or 100 resumes, they'll ask me, hey, what am I doing wrong? What's wrong with my resume? The reality is there's nothing wrong. That's just how the process works now. It's different than it was 5 or even 10 years ago.
Almost you got to push your focus past that and don't worry about it until they do call you. Let's talk about job searchers, that they have to be open to project work.
Well, what you'll find right now is if you call 10 companies in West Michigan and ask them if they're hiring, at least 9 of 10 are probably going to say no. But if you ask them if they have challenges or problems that they need help with, they'll almost all say yes. So as job seekers run into that situation, if they're more flexible and they're open to doing things on a project or consulting basis, that's one area that we've seen really take off over the last 3 or 4 years, really.
Real quick, what do you think the biggest mistake job seekers make? What's the biggest mistake they make out there? Is it just aiming too high? Is it looking or sitting back and waiting in the cut, waiting for something to happen?
I think the biggest thing, and it's tough right now when a lot of the news isn't good, they need to get out there and let everyone that they know they're looking for a job. They need to network, and they need to proactively contact companies. If you're in the job search mode, whether you like it or not, you're in sales at that point. The average sale is made after 7 contacts. If you're giving up after 1 or 2, you're probably selling yourself short.
All right, Mike Ball, you've got a lot of more great tips for us coming up. Again, if you want to get to tomorrow's event, Transition Toward the Future, it runs from 8:30 in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon at St. Jude Catholic Church. They're at 1120 4 Mile Road there. Take advantage of it. Again, we thank you, Mike, and we want to let you know that Mike will be sticking around with us here. Coming up in about 20 minutes at 5:40, we'll go back to him. He'll let us know a little bit more about the common mistakes made during job interviews. And they may sound familiar to you.
They may.
That's coming up. Suze.
All right, Brian and Mike, thank you. Back to your money, your job. Tonight, as the state announces a drop in the official number of people who are out of work, 24-Hour News 8 is taking a close look at a free program that could help those who are still struggling to find jobs. It's called Transition Toward the Future. It's a 6-hour program, and it's free. It's presentations designed to help you find a job and offer hope, encouragement, and useful information in that search so you can turn things around. The topics you see there on your screen, just a few of those included in the program. Brian Sterling now is going to talk with one of the presenters in that program. Brian?
Suze, we're getting some great tips here. Back now with presenter Mike Ball of K4 Staffing, here to tackle the dreaded job interview and you know, the mistakes that people make. And I guess one of the biggest mistakes a lot of folks make is not listening
Yeah, Brian, probably the #1 mistake I see people make is they go into an interview, they're very excited, they have a lot of adrenaline pumping, it may be a job they really want, and they decide ahead of time what background or what skills or what accomplishments they want to share. Those may or may not be what the interviewer wants to talk about, and so if you don't listen to the questions accurately and closely, you run the risk of answering in a way that doesn't really answer their question, and it will reflect poorly on you.
Mike, what about doing your research? It seems like an obvious one before you go into an interview, but that can make or break the deal.
Yeah, I've had a number of people over the years that have gone into an interview and sat down and said, so what do you folks do?
Right.
Not a good way to start an interview.
No.
With the tools that are out there, between websites, search engines, there is absolutely no excuse not to understand what a company's mission is, what their current business state is, maybe some major initiatives that they have going. You can ask about those initiatives, and that research will set you apart from other candidates that they're speaking with.
Michael, like you said, oftentimes you get into an interview situation, you get in, your adrenaline's pumping, you're nervous, maybe you're not paying attention the way you should be. You talk about listening to the interviewer's question. What about the answer that you give that interviewer? Should it be thought out? I mean, are you allowed to take a minute and think about what you want to say?
I always tell people it's better to take a slight pause and formulate a professional, fluid answer than it is to respond very quickly. The questions that people typically struggle with, why did you leave your last position or your last several positions? What is your greatest weakness? How much money did you make? How much money do you want to make? Those are all questions that people should prepare for ahead of time, so they've got a strategy as to how to answer those to minimize their exposure to have problems in those areas.
Yeah, sometimes it's those basic questions. If you have a creative answer to, again, it might separate you from the pack. It makes all the difference.
Absolutely, and what you have to remember is most of the time the interviewers are just looking for a consistent, well thought out decision-making pattern and an answer that makes sense.
All right, Mike Ball, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much again. If you can make it, it is a free program, Transition Toward the Future. It takes place tomorrow. It runs from 8:30 in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon. It's happening at St. Jude Catholic Church in Grand Rapids. They're on 4 Mile at 1124 Mile Road.